tonight, Ireland jumps ahead in the race to have the most censorship in the free world. It's June 16th, and this is the Ezra Levant Show. Shame on you, you censorious thug. Listen to this short clip of a speech from Ireland's legislature. It's just 41 seconds long. This is Green Party Senator Pauline O'Reilly.
When you think about it, all law, all legislation is about the restriction of freedom. That's exactly what we're doing here, is we are restricting freedom, but we're doing it for the common good. You will see throughout our Constitution, yes, you have rights, but they are restricted for the common good. Everything needs to be balanced. And if your views on other people's identities go to make their lives unsafe, insecure, and cause them such deep discomfort that they cannot live in peace, then I believe that it is our job as legislators to restrict those freedoms for the common good.
All law is about the restriction of freedom? Yeah, no, it's not. Most laws actually don't have anything to do with freedom. If you skim Canada's Constitution Act, you can see all the things the law deals with. Unemployment insurance, postal service, census, the military, navigation and shipping, fisheries, currency, coins, banks, weights and measures, bankruptcy, marriage, immigration. I'll stop there. Now, of course, some of those absolutely do limit our freedoms. I mean, if you're jailed under the criminal law provisions, that absolutely does limit your freedom of mobility, for example. And I'm not here to say the government doesn't infringe our freedoms. It absolutely does, way too much. But it is an insane thing to say that by definition, all laws are about shrinking your freedom. And that she said it as if that was the happy point of it, that was a quality, not a feature, not a bug. That's normal and has to be accepted. She was happy about that. I mean, I suppose every law does in a way limit our freedom, but not the way she meant it. And she was thrilled about that. That's a bully's idea. It's a madman's idea, an authoritarian dictator's idea. That's someone who doesn't trust her friends and her neighbors, but wants to rule over them. She says the word common good so many times, it's like it's a magic spell, like it is sufficient to say that before taking away your neighbor's rights. I'm doing this abracadabra for the common good. You have to stay in your homes for months. You have to do that for the common good. You can't go to school or work or to a park. You can't have a wedding or a funeral. You can't go to church for the common good. You can't have your family over. You can't have Christmas dinner because of the common good. Presto. And these tyrants alone will decide what is or isn't in the common good. We just lived through 3 years of that, and we found out it wasn't for the common good. It hurt the common good. The lockdowns had no scientific basis or benefit, neither did the masks, and the vaccines certainly didn't vaccinate. These people had no special knowledge. They just used COVID as the latest excuse for the common good. They'll use climate as an excuse for the common good. Now you can see they're using people's feelings as a reason to take away your rights. Did you catch that part where she said, if your views on other people's identities go to make their lives unsafe and insecure and cause them such deep discomfort that they cannot live in peace, then you can restrict those freedoms. What? So if you merely have views that are wrong in the eyes of the law, you must be restricted? Views. If your views are wrong, and she'll decide that. You heard her. Views about other people's identities. What? You can't have an opinion because that will make other people uncomfortable, she says. She said that. So you must have your freedom limited because your views cause someone else discomfort. She said that. But what if they cause you discomfort too? Is only one side of a debate allowed to cause discomfort and only one side, the other side of the debate, required to endure discomfort? This is madness. This is not law. This is totalitarianism in the name of safety. You know, Jordan Peterson would say, this is the modern manifestation of authoritarianism in a female way, a different shade of bullying compared to the typical male authoritarianism, which we've had an eternity of experience. It's a more recent thing to see female totalitarians, isn't it? But just think about what we went through during the lockdowns. Theresa Tam, Remember her?
If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings. It's potential you could track people, put bracelets on their arms, have police and other setups to ensure quarantine is undertaken. It is better to be preemptive and precautionary and take the heat of people thinking you might be overreactionary, get ahead of the curve, and then think about whether you've overreacted later. But it's such a serious situation that I think decisive early action is the key.
Toronto's public health boss, Eileen de Villa, very butch, sending in the riot horses against her restaurant. Alberta's Dina Hinshaw expropriating, seizing a church and turning it into an armed garrison. BC's Bonnie Henry, women can be as vicious as men, I'll have you know. They frame their bullying in the same sort of way, quite often as each other. This is about safety. This is about compassion. It's a different way of being totalitarian than men typically are. I'm only hurting you because I care more than you. I'm only being a bully because I'm more compassionate than you. It's the common good that makes me do it. In fact, look, it is not for the common good, and all laws should not be about restricting freedom. May I direct your attention to Canada's basic law, the Constitution, the Charter of Rights, or the U.S. Constitution, or the Magna Carta, on which both were built. All of the laws I just listed are about limiting government power, not limiting citizens' freedom. The Magna Carta was about forcing limits onto a king. Here's my favorite part of our Canadian Constitution. It's Section 2 of the Charter of Rights, which is part of our Constitution. It's called Fundamental Freedoms. I'm going to read them because I love them. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms. A, freedom of conscience and religion. B, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. C, freedom of peaceful assembly. And D, freedom of association. Those are laws that strengthen people and limit the government. That's the kind of law I like. By the way, the freedom, they mean freedom of association, freedom of speech, means freedom from government, by the way. Here's another woman who wants the power to silence people because she cares more than you. And this is how she shows it. This is Justice Minister Helen McKenna. And by the way, only haters hate hate speech laws. You hater. Take a look.
Minister, yesterday you indicated that the only people who oppose your government's hate speech laws are, quote, fringe commentators. But of the thousands of replies to your own government's public consultations, 73% were negative. And according to the last poll done on the subject, 65% of people oppose such laws. So is it not, in fact, your government that's endorsing the fringe position here?
What I think is very clear, and this is coming from the significant amount of public consultation that we've had in the last 4 years, consultation that started back in 2018, is that there is a very clear group of minority people in this country who are simply targeted and who are being either victimised or harassed, assaulted, who are victims of hate speech and hate crime simply because of who they are. So that is very clear, that is based on fact, and that is also based on reports that we have.
But Minister, with request, that's not what I asked. But I'm sorry, that's not what I asked. And also, I've gone through every single one of the consultation responses. There were about 3,600 of them, and that's really not what they said. The vast majority of people said they don't want this. So where are you getting the idea that there's public outcry for this other than government-paid NGOs?
So that's incorrect to say that the vast majority of people don't want this. I think even if you were to listen to the debate last night in the Seanad, and certainly the debate in the Dáil, the vast majority of people do want this.
But those are politicians. We're talking about the general public. Where's the public outcry?
I can either answer the question or not. But I mean, what I'm basing this on is very clear factual evidence. If you speak to An Garda Síochána, there has been a 29% increase in hate crimes across this country. So while we don't have hate crime legislation,
recorded hate crimes.
So I didn't quite get the statistic there. Was it 65% or 73% oppose this hate speech law? And this justice minister says that people are victimized or harassed or assaulted by hate crimes. Well, those are three different things: victimized, harassed, or assaulted. Which does she mean? Which is she banning? Does she even know? Here's another censor. Ireland's full of them, apparently. Here's Senator Joe OReilly. He actually says that the Holocaust and street violence is really just speech run amok and jokes, and that jokes have to be censored. He actually says without this law, which has never been in effect in history, it would be like Lord of the Flies, out there, just unlimited violence and cruelty. Take a look.
The Holocaust began in the very early 30s with hate speech. It progressed from hate speech to hate crimes, and that progressed ultimately to the Holocaust. The attacks on the traveller community do not begin on the night of the attack. They begin through the hate speech in pubs and the warm-up and the remarks around the place that give a legitimacy to all this. The homophobic attacks in parks do not begin on the night. They begin with homophobic remarks, they begin with smutty jokes, they begin with exclusion. But what happened in Navan, those children didn't get up some morning and they were conditioned. It's jokes, it's stuff online, it's stuff from television screens, etc. It's a conditioning that brought them to that dreadful position, a sort of a Lord of the Flies thing, but something that's fed into, and that has to be considered.
Well, thank God he's here to fix it. I mean, how has Ireland managed to escape the Nazi Holocaust or the Lord of the Flies wild anarchy without his guidance in this law? It's amazing that Ireland hasn't had a Holocaust, because this law is what would stop the Holocaust. What a grandiose buffoon. By the way, this is all about being a battering ram against parents who are concerned about transgenderism being pushed in the schools. That is what this is all about. That's the front line of the free speech battle now. Shutting up parents. Which is interesting because Ireland, I read its constitution today. It's a very interesting constitution. It's quite unlike ours. They have a whole section about the family in the constitution. Have you ever heard of that before? I have not. Let me read to you Article 41 from the Irish Constitution, which is published in both Irish and English. I think Senator Pauline O'Reilly, and frankly all of them, ought to read it again. It doesn't limit freedom. It strengthens the family against other forces. I'm going to read to you. Here's Article 41. It's called the family. Imagine a constitution that says that. 1, the state recognizes the family as the natural, primary, and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. Do you know what those big words mean? It means you can't touch it. It's bigger than and predates and more important than all laws. I've never seen anything so pro-family in my life. Number 2, the state, therefore, guarantees to protect the family in its constitution and authority as the necessary basis of social order and as indispensable to the welfare of the nation and the state. This is in the Irish Constitution. Are you blown away? 2, in particular, the state recognizes that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. There's that term, the common good. And it's by respecting a family and respecting moms. This Constitution says the highest position in the world is a mom. It's in the Irish Constitution. Have you ever seen this before? Check it out for yourself. This is hard to believe, isn't it? Because we've never heard of such a thing. That's the common good, isn't it? The state shall therefore endeavor to ensure that mothers shall not be obliged by economic necessity to engage in labor to the neglect of their duties in the home. That's interesting. That is pretty pro-family. It is indispensable to the welfare of the nation and the state. That's a bit more oomph than Senator O'Reilly's vague common good. In fact, it takes ownership of the phrase common good. But let's look at this proposed law. And I put it to you that this proposed law will be a battering ram against the family. That's what it's being used for today. So this law, it's a reform to a bunch of other laws of criminal nature. It's got a list of things that you cannot criticize or insult anybody about. So you can't say something that might offend someone else. I mean, you heard the senator. So I'm going to read to you from the law, meaning of protected characteristics. So you can't pick on anyone for their protected characteristic. And what does that mean? In this act, other than in Section 8, protected characteristic in relation to a person or a group of persons means any one of the following, namely race, color, nationality, religion, national or ethnic origin, descent, gender, sex characteristics, sexual orientation, or disability. But of course, the key is the next section. They clarify in particular, gender means the gender of a person or the gender which a person expresses as the person's preferred gender or with which the person identifies, and includes transgender and a gender other than those of male and female. They don't dare try and list what those are. Now, they're telling you what this is about. Gender expression is how you show yourself, but gender identity is just what you say you are. You can have a big old bloke with a beard and biceps, and you can say, I'm a gal now. That's called gender identity. And if you insult that, criticize that, or offend that, you are a criminal under this law. Hey, but it's for the common good. Now look at this funny wording. The law bans incitement to violence or hatred. Now, I don't believe in violence at all. Violence and hatred couldn't be more different in their expressions. I mean, I suppose they're related because violence sometimes has hatred behind it, but they're very different. Hatred is a human emotion you feel in your heart. It's a natural feeling. It's a subjective occurrence. We all respond differently to different things in our minds and our hearts. That's hatred. The other one, violence, is an act, a criminal act usually, of attacking another person. You can't compare a feeling in your heart with an action against another person. You can't compare hate with violence. But it's obviously done deliberately. It's criminalizing feelings. There are surely very, very few actual violent acts in Ireland that would fall under this law. So this law will keep everyone busy dealing with feelings crimes. Instead, they're lumping them together. I'll read some more. Offensive incitement to violence or hatred against persons on account of their protected characteristics. Subject to subsections 2, etc. A person shall be guilty of an offense under this section if the person communicates material to the public or a section of the public, or behaves in a public place in a manner that is likely to incite violence or hatred. Well, those are two pretty different things. Against a person or group of persons on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics, and the person does so with intent to incite violence or hatred against such a person or group of persons on account of those characteristics or any of them. I won't read all the fine print there, but basically, they're blurring feelings and violence, and then they're adding a likely to. What does any of that mean? Like, would you know how to conduct yourself in Ireland now? If you behave in a way that could incite bad feelings, you're a criminal now? What's that mean? Does anyone know what the test for that is? Well, no, that's the point, isn't it? So everyone's guilty, they just have to charge you. And again, it's a future crime. Did you see that likely to incite feelings? So you don't have to actually incite bad feelings. Certainly not past tense. He did incite feelings, but maybe in the future it's likely to incite feelings. How do you even defend against that? You can't say, Your Honor, it didn't make anyone feel bad. Well, it could have. You're guilty because it could have. You can do or say something that literally has no effect at all in the world, doesn't cause bad feelings, certainly doesn't cause a violent action, and you'll still be guilty. Do you see how this law is written? It's a future crime, likely to incite feelings, not even likely to cause violence. This is like no crime we know of in the Western world. Oh, and the punishment for breaking this law is up to 5 years in prison, plus a fine, by the way. Here's an interesting wrinkle. Offense of condonation, denial, or gross trivialization of genocide, etc., against persons on account of their protected characteristics. So subject to Section 11, a person shall be guilty of an offense under this section if the person communicates material to the public or a section of the public, or behaves in a public place in a manner that condones, denies, or grossly trivializes genocide, a crime against humanity, a war crime, or an act specified in blah, 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 the International Military Tribunal. All right, but who gets to decide? The Armenian genocide, which I believe happened, millions of Armenian Christians killed by Turks. But Turkey does not believe that happened. They deny it. Could the Turkish ambassador deny the Armenian genocide? Would he be charged with a crime. How about the Uyghurs? Do you know who they are? That's the Muslim minority in Xinjiang province in China. So they're Chinese Uyghur Muslims. That's what they're called. And there is a case to be made, and I think it's fairly well documented, that China has committed a kind of a genocide against them. They haven't killed them all, but there is a brutal human rights violating slow motion war against the Uyghurs. There's concentration camps there. It's atrocious. There's certainly atrocities. A lot of people believe that's a genocide. Some people deny it. Justin Trudeau would never say it. He says Canada has committed a genocide, and other people deny that. Who gets to decide? Can I prosecute Justin Trudeau under this law for denying the Uyghur genocide? I mean, who gets to enforce that? Here's the craziest part. You think this law is crazy? Look at this. You can have something, literally just have it on you. Have it on your phone, have it on your computer, have it in an email, have it on your Instagram page, and be guilty just for having it, just for possessing it. You know what I mean? Like a meme or a joke or a picture, whatever. Let me read the law to you. Offense of preparing or possessing material likely to incite violence or hatred against persons on account of their protected characteristics. Subject to subsections 2 and 3 in section 11. A person shall be guilty of an offense under this section if the person, A, prepares or possesses material that is likely to incite violence or hatred against a person or group of persons on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics, with a view to the material being communicated to the public or a section of the public, whether by himself or herself or another person. Okay, just stop for a second there. So you didn't have to make this meme. You didn't have to write this joke. You didn't have to say these words. You just have to be in possession of it, like it's some, I don't know, some gun or bomb or some hard drug. Are you in possession of drugs? Are you in possession of dank memes? Are you in possession of dirty jokes? You didn't even have to create it. You just have to have it. And you don't even have to share it. Someone else might. B, prepares or possesses such material with intent to incite violence or hatred against such a person or a group of persons on account of those characteristics or any of those characteristics, or being reckless as to whether such violence or hatred is thereby incited. So you don't even have to mean to hurt any feelings. Just be I was recklessly sharing a joke, Your Honor, and someone got hurt feelings. Actually, I say again, they don't actually have to have hurt feelings. Just maybe they were likely to have feelings. No one was hurt. No one even complained. You didn't write this goofy meme. You didn't have any, you just had it in your phone. You're guilty because it could have caused someone hurt feelings. Oh, and get ready for your full cavity search. Oh, for the common good, though. Let me read this next part. A member acting under the authority of a search warrant under this section, so they can search you. A, operate any computer at the place that is being searched or cause any computer to be operated by a person accompanying the member for that purpose. And B, get this, require any person at that place who appears to be to the member to have lawful access to the information in any such computer, to give to the member any password necessary to operate it, and any encryption key or code necessary to unencrypt the information accessible by the computer. 2, otherwise to enable the member to examine the information accessible by the computer in a form in which the information is visible and legible. Or 3, to produce the information in a form in which it can be removed, in which it is or can be made visible and legible. So they can search your stuff and force you to give your passwords. But hey, it's for the common good. That's Ireland. How did a place that came up with so much banter, so many jokes over the centuries, how did a place like that, with such a humor, such a reputation for banter and jokes and limericks a place in Ireland? We named the Dirty Joke poem after them. How did that place come to where it is now? That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.